Hello, Mai Kako, and good afternoon. Mahalo for joining today's AEN hearing. It's Monday, March 30th, and we're convened in room 224 and video conferencing, which includes the audio and video of remote participants. It's being streamed live on YouTube. In the unlikely event that the hearing is cut short, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business on Wednesday, April 1st at 3:15 p.m. and 224 during AEN's time slot, and a public notice will be posted on the Ledge's website. And because of our 90-minute time limit for hearings, there'll be a 2-minute time limit for all testifiers. So let's see, first up is GM 511, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Molokai Irrigation System Water Users Advisory Board, gubernatorial nominee Harry Purdy III. And first up is Department of Hawaiian Homelands. They here? They are in support. Dab?
Hello, Chair. Riley here from the Department of Agriculture about security. We stand on our written testimony.
Okay, thank you. Luann Mahiki Langford Favorito on Zoom.
Aloha
Aloha.
from Molokai. Aloha, Senator Gabbard and committee members. Thank you so much for this opportunity to provide testimony in strong support for Harry Tootie Purdy. He is one of our Ho'olehua homesteaders and has been 3 generations with their beautiful MacNut farm. The Hawaiian Civic Club, the Ho'olehua Homesteaders Association proudly supports him. Thank you very much for your time. Aloha.
Thank you. Next is Barbara Kalipi. Person in support. Patrick Kahavai Ola'a on Zoom.
Not present on Zoom, Chair.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Okay, is Harry here?
Harry is here, labeled under Kelia Purdy Avellino, sorry.
Okay.
What am I?
Right there.
Hello, Harry. You want to make a statement?
Not really, unless you guys have a question or two or 3.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
From me or from them?
Let's see here.
I can. Let me the glasses on.
So, Harry,
Yes.
what do you see as the biggest barrier for young homesteaders who are trying to enter agriculture on Molokai?
Well, the biggest is, first of all, wanting to be one. And to be one, you have to probably have some background or generational type of knowledge of, especially on Molokai, especially Ho'olehua, a lot of challenges. So it's not an easy step for anyone if they're brand new into it. So coming from my family being more sustainable type, not, I wouldn't say farmers, but just sustainable, having products on the homestead as I was growing up, learning from my mom and my dad, utilizing the homestead for sustainability. And then in 1982, I actually opened up a macadamia nut farm on my homestead that was originally planted by the first homesteaders on the property in the 1920s. Once I got the homestead from our neighbor, it was passed on to me in 1980. My mom and dad said, in here, there's a whole bunch of macadamia nut trees, so we're going to clean it. And I was working for Aloha Airlines at the time, so I wasn't really into the cleaning end, and ended up utilizing the 50 trees on the side of me working for Aloha. And from that point on, Aloha left this island in the 80s. And instead of me going back to Oahu to work, I chose to stay home on Molokai. And I've been a Hawaiian homestead farmer since 1982 for economics. And that is my primary source of income. Utilizing now, I'm probably we're utilizing about 12 to 15 acres of land in terms of macadamia nut production and sustainable agricultural plants that we have on at least 10 to 15 acres of land.
Okay,
So,
all right. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next GM. It's GM 676, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Molokai Irrigation System Water User Advisory Board. Denise Kawano. And first up is Department of Hawaiian Homelands. They are in support. Dab.
That stands on its written testimony and support.
Okay, anyone else wishing to testify on this GM? Any questions? There were a total of 2 in support, 0 opposed. Oh, yeah. And we heard from her that there was an emergency or something with her family, that she would not be available to testify on her own behalf. So we'll move on to the next measure, GM 771. Submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Board of Ag and Biosecurity, Governor's nominee James Gomes. First up is Dab.
Good afternoon, Chair Gabbard, Senator Rhodes, Sharon Hurd, Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity, in strong support of Jimmy Gomes's advised consent to the Board of Agriculture for his second term. James has been an advocate for agriculture all his life. It's been a lifelong path for him. He served on many county boards as well as state boards. During the meetings that he's been every meeting, and during the meetings, he always has the most cogent questions and shows a real passion for all facets of agriculture. Being a rancher, he not only advocates for ranching, but he questions even the diversified ag or water issues. He's always there with the probing questions. So I strongly advocate for his renomination to the board, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Brian Miyamoto, Hawaii Farm Bureau.
Good afternoon, Chair, Senator Rhodes, Brian Miyamoto, on behalf of the Hawaii Farm Bureau and our President, Randy Cabral. We are in strong support of this nominee. I think Chair Hurd said it very well, why we support Mr. Gomes. There's a lot going on with the Kona Lows, but I think it reflects on Jimmy Gomes that both Chair and I are here for his confirmation hearing. He's got extensive background and experience. He is a Paniolo. He wears a lot of cowboy hats, as you heard the Chair say in our testimony references. Whatever hat he's wearing, he's always calling and asking about the farmers and ranchers. Every time I talk to him, it's about helping the farmers and ranchers, this issue, that issue. We've seen him do it as a strong advocate on BLNR. And he's currently doing it on the Board of Agriculture and Biosecurity, and we want him to continue. As the Chair said, as Chair Hurd said, Mr. Gomes asks the hard questions, but he demands the answers also. Again, he is a true Paniolo, a true producer, a true Aggie. We are in strong support of Mr. Gomes. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony.
Thank you. Nicole Galassi from Hawaii Cattlemen's Council on Zoom.
Thank you, Chair Gabbard, Senator Rhodes. This is Nicole Galassi on behalf of the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council. We are also in strong support of Mr. Gomes, as he has shown his dedication to advocating for agriculture in all the time and effort he's put into state and nonprofit boards, all of this on his own time. I've had the pleasure of working directly with Mr. Gomes as the president of the Hawaii Cattlemen's Council, And in his time in leadership with the cattlemen, he always took off his personal hat and spoke for the industry as a whole. That's really necessary when making decisions on the Board of Ag and Biosecurity. James Gomes was inducted to the Paniolo Hall of Fame for really good reason. His love of the land, his extensive practical experience, and all of the efforts he makes to perpetuate the Paniolo culture. These are all qualities that will continue to serve the Board of Ag and Biosecurity well. Mahalo.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole. Anyone else wishing to testify on GM 771? Is Mr. Gomes on Zoom?
He is present, Chair.
Aloha, Mr. Gomes.
Aloha. Aloha, Senators. Thank you.
You have a brief statement you'd like to make?
Well, I thank the chair, Mr. Miyamoto and Nicole for wonderful remarks. I had everything written out, but there's no sense in me trying to say any more. They've covered it. And this one thing that I have in mind that I'd like to know is that we need to support the Department of Law Enforcement to help us deal with ag crimes. That's a very rampant deal that's going on with poaching, as we well know about the Cranston-Pia bill. Yeah. And I also would like to know, I'm listening to stakeholders throughout the state of Hawaii. They're always asking for cheap lands, cheap interest rates, low interest rates, and water and so forth. So they would like to also continue, I would like to continue the Act 90, transferring land from DLNR to Department of Agriculture and Biosecurity. I've noticed that since Chair Hurd has come on board, the needle has moved with Chair Don Chang. So I appreciate that. But still yet, a lot of farmers and ranchers are asking, we need land. You know, we want land and we want it reasonable. So I think, you know, that this is a very important deal. And, you know, as we prepare and we want to practice the environmental stewardship of what we have learned from our kupunas, you know, and put it into practice, integrate it into climate changes, that we can, you know, help with the wildfires, drought, renewable energy, XYZ. Many ranchers and farmers are already practicing that from years gone by. So in closing, you know, there's a lot more, but it's already been said. I'd like to help keep ag lands in ag hands and Malama Pono da Aina and its resources. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Gomes. Any questions? So, Jimmy, you mentioned ag crimes, cheaper land, environmental stewardship. What is the biggest challenge that are facing ranchers in Hawaii today, in your mind?
It's enforcement, probably, because, you know, you just get a slap on the hand. So, you know, you need to really be active. And so, you know, when we get enough info and you take these crimes down, it's got to really hurt their pocketbook. You know, it's got to really got to be out there and enforcement and really nail them to deter them from doing this kind of actions, you know. Also, we have a lot of drug activity that's happening on ranches and farmers, you know. So I believe that we need to have a lot more teeth in the laws. So when this happens, you know, you will really set precedents, and you will not just a slap in the hand for a $50 fine. It has to be substantial.
Okay. All right, thank you, Jimmy.
I did have one question.
Yes.
Mr. Madam Chair.
Senator Rhodes?
Mr. Gomes, so my recollection, or so maybe somebody said it today, you used to be on the BNR?
Yes, I was there for 2 terms, 2 4-year terms. I had started off with William Isla and then Suzanne Case.
So when did you go off the board?
I think I went off in 2000, and I have it here. 2021. I went on 2013. I got off 2021.
I can't remember. Is that a term limited position? Did you have to go off?
Yeah, 2 terms, 2 4-year
That's it.
terms.
Okay,
And then I went on to the Agricultural Development Corporation for about a year. And then I know that was only for Oahu and Kauai, but I wanted to help stakeholders throughout the state of Hawaii, the 50th state. So
gotcha.
Joe Tanaka here was coming up on his 4-year term for the Department of Ag. And I asked him, I'd like to take that position. And he said,
Okay.
yeah, right. So that's when I
Thanks.
went on to Department of Ag. But it was with Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser and Morris Atta. And then after that, which Chair Sharon Hurd.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, there were 20 who testified in support, 0 opposed, 0 comments. Thank you, Mr. Gomes. We'll get back to you. We'll go on to the next measure, GM 772, submitting for consideration and confirmation to the Environmental Advisory Council, gubernatorial nominee Michelle Lefebvre. First up is the Environmental Advisory Council on Zoom. Dawn Egger-Nord-Blum.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Senator Gabbard and the Committee on Agriculture and Environment, Vice Chair Richards, and members of the Senate Committee on Ag and Environment. We fully stand with your support, hopefully, for Ms. Lefebvre. She's wonderful. And she's, no good deed goes unpunished. I can say that. And what I can say is that we are on the Environmental Council looking at these exemption lists that are going through, and Michelle does a great job at heading that particular committee. So I appreciate your support, and I stand by our testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Next is Mary Alice Evans from OPSD.
Tom Eisen with OPSD. We stand in our testimony in strong support of Michelle to a seat on the Environmental Advisory Council.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to testify on GM 772? And do we have Michelle online?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Michelle. Before we take questions, would you like to make a statement?
Just that I appreciate being nominated to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council again, served a term of 4 years and look forward to continue helping in that role with this new nomination.
Okay. Any questions?
Oh, sure, I got one.
Senator Rhodes.
So you're I think Dawn said that you're already serving, correct?
That's correct.
And you're chair of a committee that does can you just talk about a little bit about what you're doing as chair of that committee?
Certainly. It's the Exemptions Committee of the Environmental Advisory Council. And we review our committee. Well, it's pretty much, since we're such a small council now, we review it. I lead the committee, but really the whole council participates. So agencies with the update to the 343 implementing rules with 11-200.1 exemption lists, where our agencies were encouraged to split their exemption lists into Part 1 and Part 2 exemptions. Part 1 not needing any additional documentation, and Part 2 exemptions getting published with ERP for public review. So sort of the very de minimis activities are the Part 1, and then exemptions that don't quite fall under Part 1, but are still considered an exemption, get published. And so we review agency lists as they come in, county and state agencies, as they strive to comply with the sort of 2-part exemptions, and really help them make it work for their agencies, make it work for their the types of projects that they do. And we work pretty closely with ERP as well. They have a lot of experience working with all these agencies. So just trying to help them with that process. We're sort of the good housekeeping stamp of approval through the exemption review process. But really enjoy that work.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. I have a question. Question, Brett? Senator Roy?
one of the bills that came through, shoot, I forget what committee it was, if we were all there or not. It wasn't this one though, unless it was a joint, but it was about giving the reef human rights. Where you stand on that issue?
I did see that. That was very surprising to me. I did. Do you know the outcome of that bill?
Deferred, yeah? I think it got deferred.
Hmm. I think it's a very interesting. I remember showing it to my husband when it came through. I was like, look at this. This is wild. I didn't anticipate that it would go through, but I certainly think it's interesting. I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand the legal implications that would bring, but I certainly appreciate the sentiment, I guess, of where that was going. Not sure that I would be in full support, but
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. If I seen your name advising on it, like where would you be in the testimony?
I definitely would want,
Would it be support, oppose, or abstain?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I don't think I would be in support, but I certainly would be interested in learning the people that drafted that bill. What they were interested in and learning more about it. But yeah.
Sorry, one more time. Which one would it be?
I would not support. I would not.
Okay,
support.
okay. Thank you. Appreciate the clarity.
Okay. And we can put you in touch with the person who came up with that idea, that concept, but I was informed that we did try to pass it out, but it did not pass. Okay, and I have a question for you, Michelle. So, where do you think the current environmental review process, if it does fall short, where do you think it falls short? In terms of engaging our community?
That's a very good question. I think, every time in my professional capacity, I work as an environmental consultant. So I prepare, EAs and EISs. And, again and again, when we are in a public outreach part of those environmental review documents, you hear frustration with the public in the process. And I think, a big part, even though you're trying to educate, when you're in this process, what project you're doing, but a lot of times you sort of have to back up and talk about the process. So I'd say I think your question was the most frustrating part, or the part that maybe isn't working the best. And I think that's public understanding of the 343 process. I think people come to public meetings or write comments on EAs and EISs, and they feel if they express opposition or they express support, that will translate, into action. And sort of, the hard part is explaining the process, explaining what a substantive comment is, and that the process, it isn't a voting process, right? But an analysis, to provide agencies the information they need to decide whether to accept or reject a document. I think a lot about how to sort of help the public understand the process so that they can provide substantive comments and then see that their participation matters in the process. But again, it has to sort of be guided, because that's, unless you've read the rules, that's not intuitive.
Okay, thank you. Okay, on GM 772, there were 6 in support, 0 opposed, and 0 comments. So, members, we can go right into decision making. Senator Rhodes, if you could assist, since our vice chair is not present. On GM 511, for Harry Purdy III, to the Molokai Irrigation System Water Users Advisory Board. Chair's recommendation will be to advise and consent. Any questions or concerns? Chair votes aye. Senator Rhodes?
Chair's recommendation on GM 511 is to advise and consent. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair is excused. Senator Coit is excused. I'll vote yes. Senator Waugh?
Aye.
Recommendation's adopted.
Okay, thank you, members. Then on GM 676 for Denise Kawano to the Molokai Irrigation System Water User Advisory Board. Chair's recommendation is to advise and consent. Any discussion? Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair's recommendation on GM 676 is to advise and consent. Chair votes yes. Vice Chair is excused. Senator Coit is excused. I'll vote yes. Senator Waugh?
Aye.
Recommendation's adopted.
Thank you, members. And GM 771 for James Gomes, confirmation to the Board of Agriculture and Biosecurity. The chair's recommendation will be to advise and consent. Any discussion? Senator Rhodes?
On GM 771, Chair's recommendation is to advise and consent. Chair Gabbard.
Aye.
Vice Chair is excused. Senator Coit's excused. I'll vote yes. Senator Waugh.
Aye.
Recommendation's adopted.
Thank you, members. And then on GM 772, Michelle Lefebvre to the Environmental Advisory Council. Chair's recommendation will be to advise and consent. Any discussion? Chair votes aye.
Chair's recommendation on GM 772 is to advise and consent. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair is excused. Senator Coit's excused. I'll vote yes. Senator Waugh.
Aye.
Recommendation's adopted.
Great. And that's it. We'll adjourn the 3 o'clock agenda. Mahalo.